I was talking to Mark Penn just a few weeks ago, and he said, we were talking about the Republican primary, and he said being front runner is really the worst place to be because then the
Right.
target's on your back. Do you think that's what's happening to DeSantis right now? You know, these criticisms are coming because right now, Trump, according to a Morning Consult poll, is polling at 56%. DeSantis is at second at 22. And then the rest of the competition, I mean, Mike Pence is third at 7%. So DeSantis is far and away the top second contender here.
Okay. Here's how I respond to that. Circle a couple of dates. One is the date in mid-August when the Republican Party is going to have its first official debate, which is also up to for debate right now as to whether the former president even will come, because one of the conditions and the prime condition for being a part of that debate is you agree you're going to support the Republican nominee. So assuming that that's okay with the former president, with everybody else, circle that date. That's very big. The next day on the calendar that was really meaningful are the Iowa caucuses in January. And you just talked about the Morning Consult poll. A lot of polls, almost all the polls, had the former president as the leader in the Republican pack right now. DeSantis a solid second, and then everybody else. Right? If Ron DeSantis goes into Iowa and wins Iowa, all that math changes overnight as they then move into the first primary contest in New Hampshire. If someone comes out of the pack that's not named DeSantis or Trump in that August 23rd debate, that suddenly has everybody talking and does well in Iowa, suddenly that changes all the polls. So this is when you look at presidential polling, it's never a matter of the absolute number across the whole country until you get to, in this case, the November of 24. It is how are they faring, especially in the early states, because that's where the momentum or the stopping of momentum or the reversal of momentum is going to take place. And you see that the governor of Florida is spending a lot of time right now in Iowa. I've heard his numbers there are very solid. His organization is solid. The others are going to try to do the same. Burgum from North Dakota and others have already said they're going to make a massive effort in Iowa to try to break through the pack going into the first primary in New Hampshire. So that's important. And then ultimately, you're going to get to Super Tuesday in the spring, March of 24. And that's where the wheat is separated from the chaff and everything is going to be made clear. But if there is a surprise player in that August debate, that rewrites the play. If Ron DeSantis, for instance, you were talking about the governor, it starts to poll really well in Iowa, that starts to change a lot of the math and the calculus in this race. And of course, everyone, with the exception of Chris Christie, Mike Pence, and the former president, are on the presidential stage, Brittany, for the first time. It's like Katie bar the door. All the predictions of what you think's going to happen, I promise you with 100% certainty is not going to happen. What that not going to happen is going to be, stay tuned. We'll find out together.
You know, that's really interesting. So you and I can talk about polls right now until we're blue in the face, but should these candidates, or should voters rather, even be looking at these? Or when we get to Iowa, that's really when the game's changing here.
I think it's fun to look at polls and talk about polls and debate polls. It's fun, right? It's a parlor game. But in terms of the reality of them right now, you're in the off year before the on year in the election. They don't count for much other than if you're one of the also, we'll call them the also contenders, and they're at 0.5%, 0.75%, 2%, and you can show movement from 1 to 2 and 2 to 4 and 4 to 8. That does mean something. It's not the absolute number, it's the movement within the numbers that determine fate in politics generally. And so if Ron DeSantis, for instance, is at 18 and then goes to 25, everyone's saying, oh my God, it's a surge. If the former president, Donald Trump, is at 55 nationally and suddenly is at 49, oh my God, he's in trouble. None of which is really fully true, but there's a sense of trend and momentum that does often lead to fundraising success or lack thereof, and voters starting to line up behind what they think might be an emerging winner.